Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Fredrik Haren. He is a creativity explorer, as he calls himself. We'll learn about that and we'll learn about powerful insights from his 25 years of traveling the world to study how different cultures unlock ideas. We'll discover from him about how simple shifts can expand your thinking, spark innovation, and reconnect you with your own creative spark. Welcome to the show, Fredrik.
Thank you very much. Glad to be on it.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Fredrik. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you about how one can think more creatively and live much more fully. We'll learn all this about this. But before that, let's learn a bit about you, about your journey, your background, Fredrik, so that people know who they are listening to.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you the short version, and I will start at the year 2000. So I used to run an internet company, but I sold it. And then in 2000, I said, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I realized that creativity was something I was really interested in. So I decided to study creativity. And for the last 25 years, that's what I've been doing. I'm traveling around the world. I've interviewed thousands of people in over 75 countries. All kinds of people, all kinds of professionals, and I interview them about how they practice their creativity, how they train to become more creative. Basically, I learn from creative people, and that's what I do. And then, of course, I write books and I speak about it.
Right. So let's learn about creativity from you. Firstly, why are you known as the creativity explorer? First, tell us about that. And secondly, what is creativity? Does creativity mean general idea is that people think, okay, one must be an artist, some sort of a painter or something. To help us understand, why are you known as a creativity explorer? And what is creativity all about? Do you look for painters and writers and all that? Or is it much more beyond that?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a good story why I'm called a creativity explorer. I used to call myself a creativity expert. So for 20 years, I was studying creativity and I was introducing myself as a creativity expert. But then when my son was 8 years old, he was asked to do a presentation in school. What does your parents do for a living? And he was supposed to say, my father is a creativity expert. But he screwed it up and he said, my father is a creativity explorer. And I heard that and I said, this is so much better. Because an expert, per definition, or at least what people think when they hear expert, is someone who knows everything. And you think about it, someone who knows everything is kind of boring. But an explorer, per definition, doesn't know anything. An explorer wants to find out. So the definition of explore is to venture into unknown territory in order to learn more about it. Basically, I don't know, but I want to know. I'm curious. So an expert has all the answers. An explorer has only questions. And that changed my whole approach to what I was doing. I was not focusing on what I knew. I was focusing on what I could learn. And that's when I broadened my spectrum on who I interview about creativity. So to answer your second question, what is creativity? Yes, I do interview a lot of artists and painters and dancers and choreographers or whatever. But I also interview all kinds of people. Business people, politicians, government officials. I can talk to a taxi driver about creativity. How do you use creativity as a taxi driver? And so I just said that last week, actually. I wrote down in my notebook, I want to understand creativity through humanity, and I want to understand humanity through creativity. And that's why I go to so many different countries. I think, 15 to 35 countries per year. And I interview so many different kinds of people. I want to understand creativity from all different aspects of creativity. The creativity of an engineer is very different from the creativity of a painter. And I want to understand all these different kinds of creativity, also different cultural ways of looking at creativity.
Right, Fredrik. So what do you do by understanding creativity from across the world, from across cultures? What do you do with that? You must be doing that information with you?
Well, what would I mean, I do it mainly to learn. And then, of course, it's research. And then the research becomes, so I'm publishing a book in November. It's called The World of Creativity. And it's 40 chapters, 40 stories about what I learned about creativity from 40 different countries. So the research turns into books, and then books turns into speeches. It's kind of like a funnel, you can say. The most interesting things I learned, and they end up in a speech.
Absolutely. And in terms of now creativity, you talk about that creativity is very vital skill in today's world. Especially, why do you say so when today we have got this whole age of artificial intelligence, and everything creative is being done by, by the chatbots and robots and everyone. Why do you think still that it is a vital skill? What will an individual do with creativity when these things can be done equally good or better by, chat GPT and all those things?
Yeah. Okay. That's it's an interesting, provocative question. But creativity is not a competition. Creativity is about making life better. So if we can, and AI is a tool. So if we can now, I totally think that AI is the biggest creativity tool that we have ever invented. So we've gotten access to a huge new tool that would make us much more creative, and we will solve much more problems, and we will create much better lives. So who cares if we come up with the idea, or if the AI helps us? Like, for example, just a couple of days ago, OpenAI, they released the Codex, the new coding model. But I talked to my programmer friends, and they said, this is amazing. I can now code so much more than I could before. That's great. Now we can create much more software that solves much more problems. And God knows, some people say like, oh, we're going to lose all our jobs. No, we're not. The world is full of problems, like from the minute problems to the biggest problems, from famine to why there's a traffic jam in my city. Unless we have solved all our problems, then we can figure out why we are not needed anymore. But oh my God, the world is full of problems, and creativity is the tool we use to solve our problems, to make our life better. So we should be very optimistic about the time we're living in right now.
Absolutely. Then why do still people have misconceptions about creativity? You talk about misconceptions about creativity. What are these misconceptions, if you can help us understand that you talk about?
Yeah, like, okay, one very common misconception is that some people are creative and some people are not. And again, it goes down to the fact that people look at it as a competition. They say, someone else is more creative than me. It's not a competition. Creativity, you should only ask yourself this question: am I more creative today than I was yesterday? And if not, what can I do to become more creative? It's a process to learn, to develop ourselves. Actually, if you think about it, I would go so far to say creativity is what makes us human. Humanity is the most creative species on the planet, or as whatever we know in the universe. It's what makes us unique. The fact that we can solve problems and look at our world and invent a better version of it. So if we look at it this way, we can look at creativity as this is what makes me a human being. And then if you think about it this way, then we say, why on earth am I not investing more time in trying to make myself a better person, then a better human being, a more creative human being? Because if you did that, you'll have a happier life. That's what people. So creativity is not just self-expression. It is self-expression, but it's much more than that. It's a tool to build your perfect life the way you want it, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you too.
Absolutely. So if creativity is such a thing, Fredrik, why do organizations, leaders do not seem to be, keenly observing it and promoting it? Rather, we have the great resignation, the quiet quitting, and so many things. How can creativity be the tool that leaders and organizations use it for the betterment of everyone, including society and humanity?
I think the answer is because we are now living in a time where we are inventing at such a fast pace, only because we have never had more people, these people have never had more education, and also they've never had access to more information than we have right now. Yeah, I mean, it's mind-blowing when you think about it. And like you're mentioning India, 100 years ago, India did not invent on a scale, on a global scale, but now you do, and so does India, and so does America and Europe, and so on. So we just have more people inventing at the same time, more ideas there's never been more ideas per second generated, which means the speed goes up. And we are not used to this. It's like we've been driving a tractor and suddenly someone puts us in a Lamborghini, and now we go much faster, but we're not used to driving the Lamborghini. So we constantly are a little bit behind, so I don't agree that companies are not interested in promoting creativity. They're super interested. They're just a little bit behind, and which means but when you are behind, you need to push yourself. And I don't think we should blame companies. We should blame ourselves. It's like people blaming school for them not being creative. It's not the school's fault if you're not creative. It's your own fault if you're not creative. It's a personal skill. So you are responsible for your own creative development, no one else.
Absolutely, Fredrik. So you have traveled many countries in the world, more than 75 countries. So what has been your experience in terms of looking at cultures, looking at creativity from different unexpected places? Anything that you would like to share with the audience about coming across creativity, insights that you have uncovered about creativity in unexpected places?
Yes, it's a bit of a paradox, because there are two main insights, and they're opposites. One is, I'll exemplify with something that happened last week. So last week I was in Bhutan, and I was interviewing creative people in Bhutan about how they approach creativity. And one of the people I went to a design agency, like a web, an ad agency, you can say. And I walked into their studio, and it looked exactly like a design studio would look in Sweden. Or I remember I was in Ulaanbaatar, and it looked just like that in Ulaanbaatar. It looked the same in San Francisco. They had like an orange wall. They had a pool table. It was like, and I just realized web designers or creatives, their offices look exactly the same. It doesn't matter if you go to Bhutan or if you go to San Francisco. They just look the same. And that's when you realize that we are just the same. Like humanity, we like to talk about our differences, but we are at the core, we are very, very similar. And then the other insight, which is the total opposite, is that we are so different. So, for example, I interviewed one guy in Bhutan about a former minister, and he said that you in the West, you look at creativity as an expression, like a self-expression. You're expressing who you are. You're creating something for the rest of the world to see who you are. He said creativity is not about self-expression. It's about understanding who you are. And you think about it, it's really true. Anytime you're really creative, you learn something about yourself. So he said it's not outward, it's inward. Creativity is inward, the Buddhist approach to it. And I said that's a very different approach to how Westerners look at creativity, and they're equally true. So if you combine these two insights, you realize that creativity is like a kaleidoscope of different things, different ways of being creative, different ways of looking at it. But at the very core of it, we're all the same.
Absolutely. So what does God want us to do with creativity? He has given so much creativity in, put so much of his creative understanding into humans all across the world, and that you said we are so similar yet so different. That is obviously that difference is because of something. How should we understand that? Why has God given us this whole power of creativity that he himself has infused into humans at this scale?
Because he wants us to be divine. The word creativity and the word creator, as in God, is the same kind of root word. So, and when we have a really, really good idea, we feel almost divine. I'll give you one of the people I interviewed was a sculptor in Hong Kong, and he had two ways of coming up with ideas. One was like his conscious mind saying, "Oh, I should do a sculpture," and then he did a sculpture. But the other way was like he would meditate, or he would come up with an idea in his sleep, and those ideas were so much better. And he called it mortal ideas. Mortal ideas is the idea that comes from our conscious mind, and divine ideas, which is the thought that comes to us through our subconscious. And he said these are two totally different kinds of ideas. We should not even talk about them in the same with the same word. They're not. Mortal ideas is ideas that I come up with and I give out to the rest of the world. Divine ideas is idea that comes to us. Like Harry Potter came to J.K. Rowling on a train. It just arrives in us. And if you study really, really good ideas, like breakthrough ideas, Nobel Prize winning ideas, they very often are these kinds of ideas. They came when someone was watching a fire and something just comes into your head, or they're walking and boom. So we should aim for the divine ideas, the ideas that come to us when we are totally at peace and we are totally relaxed. And then the idea from the universe comes into us and we become a vessel for this idea. Of course, most ideas are not like this, but that's what we should aim for.
Absolutely, Fredrik. So you have gone to many places, learned about creativity from many, many places, including Mumbai, if I understand. What have you learned, as you say, learned from creativity, about creativity from the children in the slums of Mumbai? Help us understand, yes. Because I'm from India. A lot of people would be interested to understand that.
I've learned a lot about creativity from India, not just from Mumbai. I've been to many places in India. And I like to say to people who haven't been to India, I like to say you are not a human being unless you've been to India. You don't understand humanity until you've been to India. Indians, they understand. They don't have to go to the rest of the world. They understand because all of humanity is in India. All the cultures, all the religions, you understand humanity. So that's the biggest insight, I think, from India is you go to India and you see this all the varieties of humanity in one place. But what I learned in Mumbai, I think what you're referring to is I went and I interviewed the children of sex workers in the slums of Mumbai, which is, if you look at how people look down on other people, they are at the very bottom. But they had and I wanted to learn, what can we learn about creativity from them? Because a creativity expert would never talk to them. And I wanted to learn from them. And they had a very positive approach, not only to creativity, but to life. And they said, we need to differentiate our suffering from our approach. So I'll give you a quick example. They said sometimes when we can't go home because our mothers are, she's working, so kids can't be home. We have to stay out and it's dangerous. We can't go to sleep in the streets. So we need to be awake all night. But what do we do then? We create a fire and then we sit around the fire and we sing. So yes, it's a terrible situation. They have to be awake because they can't sleep, but they turned it around and they said, let's stay up and sing. So disconnecting your approach to, they called it sufferender, which was like a made up word saying not to surrender to the suffering, but disconnect yourself, your approach to what is happening from the suffering. And that's what creativity is, to look at a problem and try to find a solution. Again, creativity is what makes your life better. You could just suffer, or you could say, this is the situation I am in. What can I do to make the situation better?
Right. What about North Korea? Normally, people do not get to understand North Korea because of the closed systems that they assume that it is in, especially about the day-to-day life. But you have been there. You have connected with creative people there. What have you learned? What is it that you want to share about North Korea, people in North Korea that you have learned from, that you want to share with the rest of the world?
Yes. First of all, North Korea, I went to North Korea because it's the least creative country on the planet, and it is a terrible government. It's a dictatorship. So I went there because I wanted to understand from the ones that we didn't think we could learn anything from. It's about being curious and open to learn from anyone. It's a little bit complicated to give a short answer on this question, what I learned about creativity. But one thing I can share with you is that they have something called the Yuji idea, which is like their philosophy, like the Chinese have Confucius and so on. And according to the Yuji idea, there are three things that makes humans different from animals, and it's independence, resilience, and creativity. So one of the three things that they define as humans is that we are creative. Now, their approach to creativity is very different. They look at creativity as a collective skill. It's not something that I am, it's something that we are. It's kind of like how we would look at communication. I can't communicate unless there's another person there. They look at creativity as something that we do together as a group. It's not they don't think I am creative, they think we are creative. And when you think about it this way, creativity becomes a collaboration in a much more a clearer way. So I think we can learn from North Korea to look at creativity as we do things together. Like Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is an amazing performer, but a Taylor Swift concert is not a Taylor Swift concert unless we have the truck drivers and the people selling merchandise and all the other people who create this concert together is what makes a Taylor Swift concert, not just Taylor Swift. Creativity is a team sport almost always. Even when you sit alone on your in your bed and you come up with you think you come up with an idea all by yourself, you have to remember that you became who you are at that moment thanks to a lot of other people, your teachers, your parents, or whatever. So we all help each other to come up with better ideas. And that's why mentors are so important, and mentoring younger people is so important. And yeah, we should help each other become more creative, and we should pick up our best ideas from others.
Absolutely, Frederick. So earlier we talked about creativity and creator, the divine connection between the two. And we are a creator, we are the creators of of the divine creator himself or herself, whatever way we want to look at it. But how do we unlock our own creativity? What is it? Why have we closed it? Why have you put it into some prison? How do we unlock it? What is it that we can do to unlock our creativity, even if we are not, say, artists or anything creative that we may think of?
As I said earlier, I think that one important thing is to realize that my creative development is up to me. So stop blaming others. That's the most important thing. And then, as I also said earlier, actually, don't compete. It's not about someone else being like, if you look at, I can't paint. Okay, no one can paint. And if everyone started everyone started comparing themselves to Leonardo da Vinci, then no one can paint, right? So stop it. Just stop comparing yourself and just say, what am I doing? And also start thinking about your own creative process, because everyone has a different creative process. When's the last time you had an idea, any kind of idea? What's the best ideas you ever had? What makes you very uncreative? What makes you a little bit, in what situations do you actually feel that you have some creativity? And try to understand that. For me, for example, I'm an introvert. I need to be by myself. And that's why I live on an island. This is an island I'm living on right now. But I also need inspiration from others. So that's why I travel the world. So I need to travel the world to meet a lot of people. But when I've done that, I just came back from 12 days in Asia. But then I go back to my island, and now I'm going to spend 2 weeks on this island all by myself. It's just the birds and my dog and my family on this island. And I need that to be by myself and think and reflect. So try to understand what makes your world, what makes your creative, what do you need to make your world as creative as possible? I mean, think about it as a plant. What if creativity is a plant? What kind of environment does this plant need? And in my case, it needs a lot of inspiration from around the world, and it also needs a lot of seclusion, being by myself. So I have now planted myself in this environment, and that makes my creative plant grow. So what does your creative plant need? And then try to build a world around that.
Absolutely. So
a gardener would say, the right plant in the right place. That's the key to your plants to grow. So make sure you're in the right place.
Absolutely, Frederick. But everyone is not that, you can say, I would not want to use fortunate, but as much as you can say, to get an island for themselves, like you are doing a live show from there. What is it then? A lot of people are living in small apartments, have difficult lives, families, and so many things other to take care of. How do they unlock their creativity within those confines, within those restrictions, whatever? Any insights on that?
Well, you're doing the mistake I just warned you about. You're doing a competition. You're doing comparison. It's not about comparison. When I bought this island, actually, I was 30 years old, and it cost less than an apartment in Stockholm would do. The only reason it did cost so little was because the guy who sold it in the middle of winter. And I was the only guy who went and looked at it, because no one buys islands in the winter when it's cold and snowy. If he would have waited 6 months to sell it, he would have made 3 times. He could have gotten 3 times the amount for the island, but he didn't, because he needed the money right there and then. Which means I bought this island for less than a normal apartment in Stockholm. And now, yes, now it's worth much more. But I used my creativity, look for islands when no one else is looking for islands, and got an island for cheaper than an apartment when I was 30 years old. I think that's a great example of what creativity is. And again, look at your situation, identify a problem or identify something that you want, and say, how can I solve this problem so it goes away, my life becomes better? Or how can I reach this thing that I want to reach? What do I need to do to reach that? And then don't just come up with one answer. Come up with 10, 15, 100 different answers, because sitting down and thinking about 100 different ways to solve a problem doesn't cost anything to anyone. And if you don't have the answer, use Google or ChatGPT, give you the right information that you need, and try to solve the problem. The sad thing is, a lot of people sit in a situation where they think their life is miserable, and they say, my life is miserable, instead of saying, what do I need to change to make my life a little bit less miserable? And if you have time, because I remember these girls, if the girls in the slums of Mumbai can make their lives slightly better by saying, let's sing tonight, instead of just sitting and being bored all night, I think that's an extreme version from my life, but they use their creativity to make their life a little bit better. And they said to me, like, you have these people in New York, and they're miserable because they want to be an actress on Broadway, but they are not making it. So now they're working as a waitress, and they're miserable because they are like a wannabe actress working as a waitress. And I said, you're framing it wrong. You should say, right now I'm a waiter, and I'm going to be a great waiter, which will give you more tips. And I'm a great waiter who has the ambition to become an actress on Broadway. And to do that, I also have to make sure that I take a few days off to go to auditions or take acting classes or whatever I need to do to get one step closer to my dream. But you don't have to be miserable while you are on your way to your dream. It's a journey. Creativity is a journey. Life is a journey. So there's so reframe, and don't focus on the misery you are in. Focus on what you can do to get out of it, and just one step. Don't compete with anyone else. Just make sure your life is slightly better tomorrow than it is today.
Wonderfully explained, Fredrik. Wonderfully explained. Now let's learn a lot more from your book, The Creativity, World of Creativity. It's coming out in November. What is in that book that you haven't said, or is it all there in the book and there is much more in that book? Who is this book for?
I gave you the example. The girls of Mumbai are in the book, but there's 40 chapters from 40 different countries. So every chapter is a country. What did I learn about creativity from when I was in Malaysia? And the Malaysian example is from a Malaysian YouTuber, a piano player on YouTube. But then in Switzerland, it's about a Swiss watchmaker. What can we learn about creativity from a Swiss watchmaker? Or a depressed artist in Norway who is not famous but just needs to paint to feel a little bit less depressed. So it's super successful people or non-successful people, but it's all people using creativity in order to make their lives better, and what we can learn from them to make our own lives better.
Absolutely. There's much to learn and understand from you about this, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, Fredrik, connect with you and learn about all this, and also will wait for the book that is coming out in November. What's the best way for them to connect with you, Fredrik?
I would say actually LinkedIn is the best. So just Fredrik Haren or the Creativity Explorer on LinkedIn is, I think, the best. Or creativityexplorer.com, fredrikharen.com, or just email me if they have a question. I love answering questions. Then it's just fredrik@fredrikharen.com.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.